you guys, welcome back and welcome if you are new. My name is Sam and welcome to my Southern Rustic Kitchen. This week we are cooking up some delicious appetizers and sweet treats, so let's head on into the kitchen and let's start baking. Alright you guys, so for starters, we're going to be working on some goodies this week in this video. So we're going to start out with some vanilla marshmallows. And also I've got my new lens for my camera, and I've set up the sound to go with my wireless mic. So hopefully everything is going pretty good in this setup. So we're going to go ahead and start. So starting out, I've got my 9x9 pan here, and I've already greased it. And in here, I've just got a mixture of cornstarch and some powdered sugar. And all I'm going to do is add a little bit to my pan here, so that way when we add the marshmallows later, they won't stick to the pan. And it will help come out very, very easily. So I'm just going to push this through a little strainer here and get this evenly coated on the bottom and all of the sides, and then we will move on to making some marshmallows. Alright, for the next step, since I've already got the pan layered with some powdered sugar and cornstarch mixture, I've got that sitting over to the side. I made a mess with powdered sugar, so if you see powdered sugar everywhere in the background, it'll be fine. I'll clean it up. So to my little stand mixer here, I'm going to add a half of a cup of water. And I'm going to add some unflavored gelatin. I'm going to add about 5 teaspoons, which is about 2 packets. Get that down in there. And I'm going to let this kind of sit here and bloom while we make the marshmallow portion of this. So we're going to go ahead and move on over to the stove and get that going. Alright, so I've got my pan here and I've got my candy thermometer already in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the remaining 1/4 cup of water, 3/4 of a cup of sugar, some corn syrup, about 3/4 of a cup, but I will leave all of the links down in the description box down below. So if you want to make these, you can check out my description box for all of the links to the recipes. And I know this corn syrup is a pain in the rear end to get out, but we got it. And I'm going to need just a pinch of salt. And I'm going to give this a little mix. Just kind of get everything kind of mixed together a little bit. And then I'm going to turn my heat on to about medium. And we are going to let this cook until it reaches 240 degrees on the thermometer. And while that happens, I'm going to add about 1 teaspoon of vanilla to the gelatin mixture. And I'll meet you back here and we'll get this going in the stand mixer. Okay, so this is at 240 degrees. I'm going to take the thermometer out and I'm going to bring this over here. I'm going to pull down my stand mixer, lock it, and I'm going to turn it on low. And I'm going to slowly drizzle in this hot mixture. So I'll be right back. Alright, so this is done. It's been going for about 10 minutes. And I've got my little pan here. And I've also got a greased spatula. So I'm just going to pour this into my pan and kind of level it out. So that way it's flat. And it helps a lot if you grease your spatula and whatever it is that you're going to use to level this out with. So that way it's not such a pain to kind of maneuver. So I've got a little offset spatula here that I've also greased. And I'm just going to spread this out. And I'm going to dust the top with a little bit more of that cornstarch powder. And then we will just let this sit on the counter until it sets up. It should take about 1 to 2 hours. Want to make sure that you get the edges really well so that way they don't stick to the pan. And once you get this pretty well covered, we're just going to set this to the side and let it set up. And then we will cut these into squares, or you can cut them with cookie cutters, or whatever your little heart desires. They will be delicious. So I'm going to clean up the ends of the pan here, and I'm going to set these aside, and then we'll make some hot chocolate later to go with these delicious marshmallows. Alright, the marshmallows are set. I kind of lost track of time. It's been about 2.5 hours, but that's fine. They're completely set. So what you're going to want to do is take a butter knife or an offset spatula and go around the sides of the marshmallows and kind of loosen them up from the pan. And then you're just going to flip them out onto a cutting board, and then these are ready to cut into squares. Now here I am just adding a little bit more of that cornstarch powdered sugar mixture to the top of these, which is technically the bottom, but you're just going to add a little bit more of that because you don't want the marshmallows to stick together. And then I'm just going to take a greased knife and cut these into squares. You can do small squares, you can do big squares, whatever you want. It will be just fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Once you get all of your marshmallows cut into your desired shapes, you can take the marshmallows and dip them into that powdered sugar cornstarch mixture just to kind of get the edges that are exposed in that powdered sugar mixture so they don't stick together. And you can store these in a bowl that has a lid. Just make sure you layer them in a single layer and put parchment paper in between the layers so that way they don't stick together. Alright, so now we are going to move on to the Italian hot chocolate. This is one of my favorite hot chocolates. It is so good. It is like warm pudding. Absolutely delicious. So to my measuring cup here, I'm going to add in 1/2 cup of milk, some sugar and cornstarch, and I'm just going to mix that together until it is well combined. Now I'm just going to add in my salt and my unsweetened cocoa powder. And I'm just going to mix that really well until it's nice and combined. Cocoa powder is a little bit of a pain to mix into cold liquids, so just be patient. It will come together. Just keep whisking it. And with the magic of YouTube, it is combined. So now that this is combined, we're going to head on over to the stove. Now we are ready to get this hot chocolate started. It is going to be so good. So to my saucepan here, I'm going to add in 1.5 cups of milk as well as my cocoa powder cornstarch mixture. And then I'm just going to give that a good whisk together, make sure it's all nice and combined. And then I'm going to add in the remaining milk that is left in the measuring cup. I think it's about 1/2 cup. Once you've added that remaining milk, you're going to give that a little whisk. You're going to turn your heat to medium-low, and you're going to bring this up to a simmer. And you're going to let it simmer for, I don't know, about 5 to 8 minutes, just until that mixture starts to thicken up. Now that that chocolate mixture has thickened up slightly, you're going to add in your chocolate chips. You can do semi-sweet chocolate chips, dark chocolate chips. You can do chocolate chunks, chopped chocolate, whatever your little heart desires. You can add that in there. And then you're just going to mix this together until all of that chocolate has melted. Now that that chocolate has completely melted and it is nice and smooth, you are now ready to ladle this
heavenly deliciousness into cups. It's so good. So go ahead and ladle that into your desired cup and top it however you like. Alright, you guys, here is this wonderful cup of Italian hot chocolate. It is so good. And I topped it with those homemade marshmallows. I cannot rave enough about this. It is so good. I think this hot chocolate and Mexican hot chocolates are my two favorite in the entire world. They are so good. But I will leave the links to all of these recipes linked down in the description box below. So if you want to make this or any of the other recipes, check in the description box. Okay, you guys, next up we are making one of my favorite appetizers to make. It is super easy and absolutely delicious. Now my audio died, so the motions are going to be a little bit different than the voiceover, but it'll be fine. I've got some cream cheese in my bowl, and I've got 12 dates that I have already pitted. I've got some garlic, Parmesan cheese, parsley, green onions, white pepper, and some pecans, as well as some sliced bacon. To your room temperature cream cheese, I got about 4 ounces of cream cheese in my bowl here. You're going to add in your garlic, your Parmesan cheese, parsley, chives, and your white pepper. And you're going to mix that until everything is well nice and combined. You don't want any bits of garlic in one specific section because that would not be good to bite into. So just make sure everything is well combined. Now that you have your cream cheese mixture all combined and ready to go, you're going to take a pecan that has been halved. You want 12 halves of pecan for each of your dates. So you want a half of a pecan per date, if that makes sense. You're going to take a half of a pecan, you're going to add it to the center of your date and add a little bit of that cream cheese mixture on top. You can do it vice versa, either way it doesn't matter. And then you're just going to gently press those dates together.
Okay, so I've got them all wrapped in bacon. The few extra pieces of bacon I just put down the center of the cooking sheet here. So I don't want to waste them. They're going to get cooked. They'll be eaten. I'm going to put these in the oven at 375 degrees for about 20 to 30 minutes, just until that bacon is golden brown and it's kind of crispy. The thicker cut bacon might take a little bit longer, so just be mindful of that. I'm going to go ahead and put these in the oven and I'll show you what they look like when they get done.
For some reason, my camera did not record me wrapping the dates in the bacon. So all you're going to do is you're going to have 6 slices of bacon cut in half, and then you're just going to wrap each of the dates in the half of a piece of bacon, making sure that the seam side is down. You can use a toothpick to secure it if you need to. And then you're just going to bake them. But here's what they look like when they are done, and they are so good. The dates, the sweetness of those dates compared with the smokiness of that bacon, it's just absolutely delicious.
Alright guys, it is the next day and we're going to be making some delicious cranberry sauce. I make this pretty much every year, twice a year, for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I like cranberry. I love cranberry sauce. There's only just a few people in my family that like cranberry sauce. It's me and my mother-in-law. My daughter will eat it every once in a while, but other than that, we are the only ones that eat it. So we're going to be making some easy cranberry sauce today. I've got one package, 12 ounces of whole cranberries. And we're going to add that to a saucepan along with some orange juice. You can do bottled orange juice or fresh orange juice, whatever you want. If you use fresh orange juice, just make sure to zest the orange as well. It'll give it a little bit more flavor. I've got bottled orange juice that I need to use up, so that is what we're going to use today. And I've got some water. Now you can do either water or cranberry juice. I've done both before and they worked out just fine. I'm going to add that in there, half a cup each. And we're going to add some cinnamon, just a tiny bit. We don't want it to be too overpowering. And I've got some cardamom here. You don't have to use a cardamom. I like it. It's not in the recipe, but I'm going to add just a tiny bit, just a pinch. And I've got some nutmeg here. You can do ground nutmeg, just maybe half of a quarter teaspoon. Use that and just a few passes over a grater if you have a fresh nutmeg. That should be good. And you're also going to need a cup of sugar. Okay, I'm going to add that right in there. And we're going to turn this on to medium heat. And we're going to stir this until it comes to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, you're going to let this boil for about 10 to 12 minutes, just until all of those berries have popped and it's thickened up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'll show you what it looks like when we get to that stage. All right, so this has been cooking for about 10 or 11 minutes, and it has thickened up very nicely. As you can tell, it's very, very thick. Now at this point, you can push this through a strainer and get out all of the berry skins, which I do that often. My mother-in-law doesn't like the whole cranberry style cranberry sauce, but I like both of them, so it doesn't really bother me. So when we're going to her house, I typically strain those out. But when it's just us, I leave the berry skins in because it, like I said, it doesn't really bother me. So I've got a bowl here. Hopefully this bowl is big enough. And I'm just going to pour it into this bowl. Scrape all of that goodness out. It is the perfect combination of sweet and tart. And that cardamom just gives it that much more flavor. So I'm going to set this back here. I'm going to let this come to room temperature. I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap, pop it in the fridge, and let it set. It should take 2 to 3 hours. And then this is ready to serve. So I'm going to leave that there, and I'll show you what it looks like when it gets cool. All right, here is this delicious homemade cranberry sauce. Now you can serve this cold, straight out of the refrigerator. You can make this 1 or 2 days in advance. You can also make this and freeze it. It freezes really well. However, I wouldn't let it go past 3 months in the freezer. It'll kind of lose its texture. But I like to make this and put it in the freezer and then pull it out whenever I make some sort of grilled chicken. It's really, really good. So yeah, here is this wonderful, wonderful homemade cranberry sauce. Okay, you guys, so while the cranberry sets, or well, it's cooling to room temperature, and then I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap and then pop it in the refrigerator for about an hour or so and let it set. In the meantime, we're going to make some old-fashioned cheddar sticks. I'm halving the recipe because this makes a lot, and it's just us here, so I really don't need to make a whole lot. So if I can find this recipe online, I will leave it linked down below or something similar. If not, I will type it up, put it on my blog. Super, super simple. So I've got a cup of flour here, and we're going to add some salt, about a half of a teaspoon. If you're doing fine salt, do a quarter of a teaspoon. I've got some cayenne pepper, and this is going to give it that nice little kick of heat. I'm going to do about a quarter of a teaspoon. If you like it a little bit more spicy, you can add more. Now, something that the recipe does not call for is pepper and mustard powder. I like to add this because I think it just gives it a little bit more flavor. So I'm going to add roughly about a quarter of a teaspoon of white pepper, but you can do plain black pepper. And I'm just going to do just a pinch of mustard powder, probably half of that. And it's going to give it a nice little bit of flavor. But I will, if I do this, if I write it up on my blog, I will be sure to add that in there in the keynote section. So I've got that mixed in there, and I've got some butter here. It's at room temperature. It's supposed to be a little bit colder, but I kind of left it by the stove while it was heating up, which was my fault. So I'm just going to add this in here until we get like a coarse crumb. Now I'm doing this with this little mixer here, but you can certainly do this with a fork. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this kind of mixed in together until it is crumbly, and then we'll add everything else. Okay, so that is all mixed together. And now I've got 4 ounces of cheddar cheese. You can do any kind of cheese that you like. You can mix it up as long as it equals out to 4 ounces. Double that if you're making the double batch. But today I'm just using cheddar cheese. So I'm going to give this a little mix. Kind of get that mixed together with that flour. Okay, so I've got some ice water here. And I'm just going to add a little bit of this at a time until it makes a dough. You don't want to add too much. You want it to come together in kind of like a soft dough, because we're going to pack this out like we do biscuits. So I'm just going to do about 1/4 cup. Get this going in there. It shouldn't take long for it to come together. You can also do this by hand if you want to. Sometimes it takes the whole 1/2 cup, sometimes it doesn't. It just really depends on the weather. There we go. That took no time at all. Now I'm going to get me a little bit of flour on my board here. We're going to add this here. That's a little sticky, so don't be alarmed. We're going to add some flour. I'm going to pat this out into about a 5 to 6 inch square. You can also do this with a rolling pin if you like. Just make sure it doesn't stick to the counter, because that would be really hard to get off. I am going to roll this out, fold this over like so, and we're going to pat it out again, roll it. Okay, so I've got these rolled out. It's about 1/4 inch thick, and I'm just going to cut this in half because I don't want them to be too big. And then we're going to cut these into strips. You can do however wide of a strip you want. I'm going to do probably about 3/4 inch on some of them anyway. Sometimes you just can't help for them to be a bit thicker in some parts because I can't cut straight. They're not as straight as I wanted them to be. I like to use this little contraption right here because it helps me get a straighter line, but I didn't even bother to get it out, but that's fine. So I've got them cut. Got my piece of parchment paper here on a sheet tray, and you can just lay these on here however you want, and we're going to bake these up. Alright, so I've got them both on some sheet trays here. I'm going to put these in a 375-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes, and they should be lightly golden, kind of medium golden color. And then I'm going to take them out, remove them to a wire rack to cool. So I'm going to get these in the oven. Alright guys, here are these delicious cheddar cheese sticks. These are so good, and you can serve these however you want. You can serve them as is, as a side. You can serve them as an appetizer with some dip. Probably a garlic and herb dip would be really good. You can cut these into cracker form and bake them and serve them as a cracker, or you can serve these on a salad as a starter. However you like to do that, that will be up to you, but these are absolutely delicious.